Well, hello, and welcome to today's case study, Solving the Headaches of Policy Change Management. My name is Glenn Gower, and I'll be your moderator today. Now, in my experience, there aren't many companies out there who really enjoy policy management. There are plenty of frustrations, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the light at the end of the tunnel. We'll be looking at a case study where we've helped an organization work through some of these headaches. And I'm joined today by my colleagues Paul Everest and Warren Rainey. Paul is Iceberg's VP of Professional Services. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Glenn.
And Warren is a GRC solution developer with Iceberg and one of our RSA Archer specialists. Welcome, Warren.
Hi, good afternoon.
Now, at Iceberg, we help organizations plan, deploy, and support risk management software solutions. We work with organizations across North America, and we offer a full life cycle of services, including executive GRC workshops, professional services, and more. Today's presentation falls under our Risk Intelligence Academy pillar, and it's all about sharing resources to help you on your GRC journey. And we will be sharing today's deck and a video on our website, icebergnetworks.com. Without further ado, Paul and Warren, over to you.
Thank you, Glenn. My name is Paul Everest, and the next part of this webinar is for me and Warren to walk you through a policy change management solution that we have built in Archer. We started with the out-of-the-box policy solution, and we simplified the workflow and the layout to make the solution a bit more user-friendly and intuitive to use for most end users. We believe that this solution is near ready to use for most clients with a fairly simple set of requirements. So if you are looking for a policy management solution and you do have Archer up and running, I'd like to talk to you a bit more because I think this solution can be up and running for you probably within about 90 days at a fairly reasonable cost. So let's talk a bit about what we've done with the solution at one of the clients that did adopt this policy change management solution. It was deployed at a large North American healthcare facility. They had nearly 2,000 policies related to all parts of the business. And their policy change management process was basically Word and email. Needless to say, they encountered a lot of challenges as they went through the review and approval of policies. It was very manual, lengthy and time-consuming, resource-heavy, and error-prone. By delivering the solution that we have to them, they were able to gain a number of benefits. Primarily, they were able to get all the policies into a common portal. They were able to simplify and ease the various workflow that had to be done to review and approve them. And it actually started as a building block for some of the other things they wanted to do in GRC. It was essentially a solution that addressed three common problems that a lot of our clients have with policy change management. The first problem is probably common to a lot of people, and that is that change management is a multiple people, groups, and it's a large distributed activity that requires volumes of emails and meetings to complete. By going to Archer, we were able to reduce the complexity of the process onto a single pane of glass or into a central portal in Archer. We were able to use notifications to bring participants into the process when they were needed. And from an auditing point of view, this solution was quite effective in that we kept track of who approved what, when, and had all the necessary artifacts for the audit team to confirm that everything was done properly. Related to the challenge of moving everything around between different people is the version control of policies. If you're using Word and email, versions can get out of hand fairly quickly. And with the Archer solution, we were able to solve that in one of two ways. One approach was to limit the update of the content to the policy owner themselves. So in Archer, only the policy owner could make content changes, and other people would provide their recommendations and suggestions to the policy owner. The other approach we had for other people that are still using Word was to attach the Word document to the policy record, and they were able to launch the Word document, take a look at the changes, but again, this would all be under the control of the policy owner. The third challenge that many clients face is actually making the policies accessible to the end user base. And again, this is where Archer provided value in the form of a central portal where people could come in, take a look at the different policies, as well as take a look at other information that was available on policies in the portal. Talking of the portal, we've got a snapshot here of what we built for the policy portal, and I'm going to let Warren now take it over from here, and he will actually do a test drive of the solution in Archer. So Warren, let me pass it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul. Perfect. So as Paul has mentioned, we will be going through a quick overview of the policy portal itself. Again, this policy portal and this policy management solution was developed with users in mind who may not always be going into Archer. We have a full workflow process for those policies, as well as we have some quick access links for users who are not as familiar with Archer and still need to find their published policies. So what you're seeing here is our policy portal. Within the policy portal, we have a few different sections. Our top section is the policy portal greeting. Again, this is just a brief overview of the policy portal itself. Below that, we have the custom policy domains. This is a section that houses quick links to policies of a specific domain. So if I come in and I'm looking for a policy that's under human resources, I can quickly go over to the human resources and employee services link, select that link, and I will be brought to a report that has all of the published policies of that particular kind. This is especially useful, again, for those users who might not be as familiar with Archer, but still need to reference a particular policy. What we'll do is we'll exit out of this list of those policies, and we'll go back to our policy portal. Perfect. So scrolling down below the custom policy domain section, we have a policies quick link section. This section houses different links for different parts of the policy review. So as a policy SME, we can go in and we can create a new policy. So this user would be going in and they'd be owning a particular policy, and by clicking on this link, they'd be able to create a new one. Below that, we have the search for an existing policy link. As it describes, this is the link that you would click on in order to quickly search for an existing policy. With that, we have three other links. These links are a link that opens up another view that has a video guide for a particular user. For this policy solution, we have three main players. We have a policy SME, so a user who's coming in and owning the policy and owns the review process. We have a business SME, as well as an accountable executive. The business SME, as well as the accountable executive, need to perform their approval before a policy reaches a published status. So what we'll do is we'll quickly click on one of those links for the video guides. What we see is we see a new pop-up here that has a particular video depending on which link you've clicked in. So if at any point a user needs to come in and they're stuck in a specific stage of the policy approval, they can come in, watch the video, and figure out what it is that they need to do from there. They can quickly change to a different user as well by selecting the video on the side. Beside the quick link section, we have the policies updated in the last 30 days. As the title would describe, these are a list of any of the policies that have been updated in the last 30 days. So if there have been any changes to those published policies, you can see them here. What we'll do is we'll click on one of the records within this report. clicking on the record itself brings you into the policy as we have it configured. If you're familiar with Archer, you'll know that a record has really two states. It's either in a view state or it's in an edit state. In this particular case, we are in a view state. But if we want to enter an edit state, we can do so by clicking Edit here. We see two different tabs in the top left-hand section of this policy. We see Policy Change Management and Policies and Procedures. What we'll do is we'll click on the Policies and Procedures and take a look as to what's in there. Perfect. So we're now in the Policies and Procedures section, and it really looks very similar to the Change Management section. Here we see all the information that has been approved upon and is deemed publishable by the approval process. So if I'm a general user and I'm coming in and I need to reference a specific policy, the only tab that I will see is this Publish Policies tab. I can have access to any of those documents that had been approved on, and if I scroll back to the top, I can review each one of the sections. I can review the procedure itself, any references, a purpose, as well as the statement for this particular policy. Here as well, I have the department that the policy belongs to, the date that it was approved, as well as the date it's been deemed effective. What we'll do is we'll switch back to the Policy Change Management tab. With the Policy Change Management tab, we see a lot of those same fields with the prefix of working. With the working field, it describes any field before it has been agreed upon and has gone through the approval process. Once the approval process is complete, all of the working fields will be transferred over to the Publish Policies and Procedures section. So again, as a general user not involved in the approval, you will only see the information in the Policies and Procedures section. That is the policy information that has been agreed upon by the policy SME, the business SME, as well as the accountable executive. Let's take a scroll down here, and we'll look at the review section. Now, with the review section, we have a few different fields. We have our status. So our status can either be a new policy, it can be a policy under review, it can be a published policy, as we see here, or it can be a retired policy. Over to the right, we see the policy next review date. This date is automatically set due to the preferences of a specific group as to when the policy needs to be reviewed. Below that, we see the policy next review date override. So if we have a policy and there's been a quick change and we need to review it sooner than the previously set review date, we can provide our override here. To the left, we have our retire policy status. So if we choose yes for retiring policy, the policy becomes retired and enters a read-only state for specific users. Below that, we have our different users for approval. We have the policy SME, so that's the policy owner, the business SME, as well as the accountable executive. The approval is required in order to push this policy to a published status. We see all of those approvals over on the right-hand side here. Below this section, we see the policy and education review required field, as well as policy and education review completed. So if there is a review required, we can select yes here. If it's been completed, we'd select yes. The committee responsible for review is chosen beneath that. Below that, we have two system-generated dates, the policy creation date and the last updated date. Below that, we have any of the comments. So if you are a business SME or accountable executive, you can come in and provide your comments here if you believe that changes need to be made before you provide your approval. At that stage, a notification would be sent back to the policy SME, and the policy SME would make those changes. Below that, we have the attachments working policy section. So these are any of the documents that may be required during the approval process. Paul mentioned that being able to capture information from the past for policies, those revisions, is quite necessary. We have our legacy revised date below in this section here. By clicking on View, you can see what type of review had been processed for this particular policy and the date which it was processed. We'll click on View now on the left-hand side. So within our policy revision date, we can see which policy it was via the policy ID, the type of revision, so be it reviewed or changed, and we have the policy name and date on the right-hand side. This gives a quick glimpse into when the policy was reviewed and if there were changes made. Let's scroll back down and take a look at the rest of the fields. Below that, we have our history log. The history log is collapsed by default, but it does show any of those changes that have been made. So if you're looking to see who performed their approval, what comments they may have had, what changes were made, they can all be seen in the history log itself. Below that, we have the published policy documents. So these are any of those documents that have been agreed upon and have been approved for that published status. So if we were to scroll back to the top and switch over to the Policies and Procedures tab, we would see those published policy documents there. So let's exit out and go through the workflow process. In the bottom section of the policy portal, we have the My Policies section. This section is essentially a job queue. So it allows any user who comes in to quickly prioritize the work they have, and they can see that their particular policy is in under review status. They can click on the policy name itself, and it will open up that record. I'll now enter the edit mode as the policy SME, and I'll perform my approval. We see here we have the submit for review. Now, once the policy SME has filled in all the information in the general section, they will submit for review, and the business SME as well as accountable executive will receive a notification, that's an email notification, with a link into it so they can quickly provide their approval. What I'll do is I'll provide my approval as the policy SME. I will also select no for the review required, and we don't have a committee responsible for this review. If I wanted to add any comments, I could do so by selecting Add New here, and I can add any of those working copies that are necessary. What we'll do is we'll save. At this point, we would expect the business SME as well as the accountable executive to come in and provide their approval as well. In the actual functioning version, rather than a demonstration, we would see that these users are just clicking on a quick link in their notification email, and it will take them right to this record. They can quickly edit, review the information, and then provide their approval. So what we'll do is we'll now log in as both the business SME as well as the accountable executive. So first, we're going to log in as our business SME. With this user, we're going to review the information in the policy itself, and we're going to perform our approval. So this is what the average user is going to see. They're going to log in and be brought directly to the policy portal. That's if they don't follow the quick link in their email. I can see that I do have 2 policies in my queue under the My Policy section. We'll click on the one that we were just looking at, the confidentiality policy. I'll enter edit mode. I'll perform my review. You'll notice that I'm not able to change any of the information here, but I am able to provide my approval or create a comment. So I'm going to create a comment to our policy SME. That I am happy with the information that's been provided in this policy. Again, if I had an issue with this, I would still enter in my comment with the issue itself, and then I would send it back to the policy SME. I also have the ability to upload an attachment if I'm referencing a specific document in my policy comment. Perfect. So now I'll perform my approval. I can do so quite quickly and easily by just selecting Approved under our Policy SME approval. I'll save the policy here, and then we expect the accountable executive to come in and perform their approval as well. Something that's very important to note is that with this current process, the accountable executive is able to come in and perform their approval at the same time as that business SME. This ensures that there's no slowdown and the 2 users can get the job done as quickly as possible. Again, logging in as that accountable SME, I can come in and quickly go to the My Policy section and select the policy that I'm going to review. I'll enter edit mode, just as I had done previously, and I'll perform my approval. What I'll do is I'll also upload an attachment. For this, it's going to be the published policy document itself that I wish to have approved. Excellent. So now let's save this document. And we'll log back in as our policy SME. We'll scroll down to our bottom here, and we'll see that we don't actually have a policy anymore in the My Policy section for the ones that we've just updated. So I do still have one in the My Policy section, but I no longer see the one that I saw before. What will happen is that policy will now be run through a data feed in the back end, and the information will be published. So what we'll do is we'll quickly run that feed in the back end, and we expect to have that data published. What I will do is I'll try to find that particular policy. In order to do so, I can go into our quick search in the top right-hand corner and look for that policy. Excellent. And we'll just allow the feed to run for just a moment, and that way we can find our record.
Warren, we're running short on time, so if you want to keep going past there, we can continue with the rest of the demo.
Absolutely. So what we can do is we can take a look at our absenteeism and tardiness. From here, we also will see that the information has been brought over to the published policies side. just as we'd expect with the document that we had just published. We have the ability to go on and export this particular document. So if we need to make reference to our policy here, the absenteeism and tardiness policy, we can go in, we can export it to a specific format. What we'll do is we'll take a quick look at this format. So what we see here is a mail merge document with all of the information for this particular policy. This is quite useful if, say, you don't have access to the Archer environment. You can always print out this particular policy with all of the information that has been agreed upon. Excellent. And that really concludes the quick demonstration that we wanted to go over today. So Paul, I'll pass it back over to you.
All right, thanks very much, Glenn. Or thanks very much, Warren. So yes, so just to wrap up, we've got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to make one last offer to the audience here. Warren and I have been working with this solution for quite a while now. We're feeling pretty comfortable that it has wide application to clients who have fairly simple policy change management requirements. So we'd like to make the following offer. If you're running on Archer 6.3, we feel that we could get this solution up and running for you in about 90 days into prod for a fairly reasonable price of around $25,000. And as long as we stick to the current solution we have, we feel that this is a very achievable goal. So there'd be no external data feeds. We would certainly allow for some changes to the field labels so that you could customize it for your particular situation. It would come with 3 roles. There are 9 notifications, and we would provide 3 custom instructional videos for the policy SME, business SME, and executive for your organization. But what we have here we think is an interesting and straightforward, almost ready-to-use solution with some tweaking and polishing to fit your particular situation. And that wraps up our demonstration today on the policy change management solution. Over to you, Glenn, for final words.
Yeah, well, thank you, Paul, and thanks, Warren. If you're interested in learning more, whether you're an existing RSA Archer customer or you're brand new to the platform, we would be happy to set up a more customized demo organization. And what you've seen here is really just the tip of the iceberg of how Archer can help you run a more effective and efficient policy change management program. Just get in touch with us at info@icebergnetworks.com. And we will also be posting the deck and a video to our website today. Afterwards, I'll share the link by email with anyone who's registered. Thanks to everyone who tuned in to join us, and big thanks to Paul and Warren for the demo and presentation. Have a great day.